regards to the last game of the season, I don't know that level of pressure. But when you're playing for something, regardless of what that is, and it's one game, you want it to be at home. That's regardless of if it's Champions League, winning the title, avoiding relegation. You want it to be at home. You always kind of want that to be the outcome because your fans will be aware. You as players are aware, but the fans as well can create an atmosphere that is hostile for the opposition, and depending on what the opposition are playing for, it can have a kind of relaxed feel for them and a kind of disregard it to a certain extent to the outcome of the game.
You wouldn't be too confident about any of these teams going to get a win the way their seasons have gone. But if you were asking for a position, it would be Everton's. They're 2 points ahead of the other two. They know that a win will keep them up. They're playing a Bournemouth side who have been very dangerous this season, but equally have lost their last 3 games. So at home against a side with nothing to play for, it really is in Everton's hands, isn't it?
Being in their hands is obviously an obvious point, but also I think if you're looking at the 3 games, you'd probably want to play Bournemouth, and that's no disrespect to Bournemouth, but again, they've been safe for a while. Well, whether there's changes, who knows? But yeah, you'd probably at the beginning of the 5-game running, you're probably looking and thinking this Spurs, West Ham, Bournemouth at home. You'd probably want them. That doesn't make it an easy game, but yeah, Everton need to realise what's at stake. And if you said to them 6-7 games ago, you're going to be last game of the season at home against Bournemouth, and it's going to be in your hands. If you win, you stay up. They'll snap your hands off. So yeah, they've got to seize this opportunity really.
If you're Leeds and Leicester, you're going into this weekend knowing that you have to win to give yourselves any chance. Does that kind of mean that the shackles are off for these players going into this game? Can they just go and have a go, with expectations? A lot of the fans will probably feel like it's too late now. There may be a bit of sort of resignment to the situation in the air. Would that be helpful, do you think?
I don't think you're going to go into the shackles off straight away. I think as the game goes on, you're going to have to. You're going to have to realise that you need to be winning. You need to win. Whether that then has an echo effect to the Everton outcome, because again, it's hard to be playing for your destiny when it's not in your hands. It's easy to say just do your job and stuff, but it's not that simple, is it? It's you're waiting for that goal from Bournemouth to take the lead, and then all of a sudden that galvanizes you, because the fans will let you know when that's happening, although equally they'll let you know when it's a goal for Everton. So yeah, the fans are going to have an impact. The kind of game itself, you would expect it to be tight at the start. You don't want to go a goal down, because neither of these teams have great records at coming back from behind. But I do think it bodes slightly well that they haven't, not necessarily for Leicester, but for Leeds, haven't won, because I think going back-to-back wins, I don't know when the last time they did that. So then the expectation is, or the realisation of the form throughout the season is probably a little bit different. I think coming off the back of a draw, it gives them a real belief and confidence, Leicester, because now you can go on to win. You're something to build off, where if you're losing 4 and 5s, going to Newcastle winning, and then at home and you're playing West Ham, you're thinking, did we get 6 points out of Newcastle and West Ham, the last 2? Is that realistic? But there should be a real belief that they can win this game.
If we talk about Leicester specifically, such a disappointing season. Some of the players that they have in their ranks, that you feel like they should have had enough to avoid the situation. Obviously, we won't go into major detail, but where do you think it has gone wrong for Leicester? Do you think the key players have underperformed, or do you think they've just made mistakes in the transfer market? What's been the biggest reason behind this, what looks like a relegation here?
I would say the transfer market. I think we touched on it at the start of the season. Kasper Schmeichel was the biggest surprise for me in probably in the window of any teams, when you're replacing or changing that position that is so integral in the team, but his presence in the league, in that club, it just didn't make any sense. And it wasn't like they was getting a sum of money that warranted it. you understand the Harry Maguire for finals. You understand them because the sums of money that are coming in allow you to change 2, 3 positions in your squad. Where the Kasper Schmeichel one, I just felt was so strange, and probably taken for granted. I think it was a position they looked at and thought, yeah, he's top, but we're not going to be in a relegation fight, so it probably won't go as noticed as it has, but it won't have an impact as it has. And yeah, for me, that was probably the one I was looking at, thinking I just don't understand it. I don't understand why they did that, why they let that happen. And yeah, there's obviously players haven't performed as well as they have in previous seasons, hence why they're there. But I think that was probably the biggest impact on Leicester for me.
I just want to ask you one question on James Maddison as well, a player that he's very vocal. He always offers his thoughts and opinions after games. He stands up and is counted in his interviews. But his form hasn't been where it's been previously. There's been constant links with him away from the club. Do you think that has impacted him this season, those links away?
Who knows? From experience, personal experience, you tend not to dwell on potential outcomes. You just have to perform. And whether he's performed as well as he would have liked, who knows? Only James will be able to answer that. But you can see he plays with a lot of passion. As you said, he talks with a lot of passion. So I don't think anyone can question his commitment. He's obviously doing something right. He's in England squads. So whether that warrants, well, whether that's the answer in regards to has he performed, he wouldn't be playing for England if he hadn't performed. But yeah, there's obviously something not gone right with the team, because the manager felt it was the right decision to leave him out of the last game as well. So there's obviously things that we don't see because, in the greatest respect, we're not watching Leicester every week. But it's never one thing. When something goes well or something goes terribly wrong, as it could potentially go for Leicester, it's never one thing. It's never one individual. There's a collection of things that have been building, and there'll be people there that have been seeing this happening. As much as they say, yeah, it's relegation, they would have been seeing the cracks appear and thinking, how do we repair them before they get too big?
And I guess on a similar note, Leeds, this has been on the cards for them for a little while as well. But we've spoken about them even last season with Marcelo Bielsa. It was a very sort of unique way of playing. It was all in, and Jesse Marsch tried to almost continue that on a little bit, and it didn't quite ever work. They've got this squad now that's kind of full of Marsch signings or Bielsa or former Bielsa players. It looks like quite a difficult job for whoever comes in next. Do you think Sam Allardyce would have any interest in continuing this job if they do drop?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that. It depends on his appetite to manage. It's a good club, good group of players, especially if they do go down. So yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, going back to the transition, I felt the Bielsa one had reached its limit in regards to where he could take them. I think there was a frustration between players and fans, just the inconsistency. I think Jesse Marsch come in and brought a little bit more balance to how they played. I think they was heading in the right direction. I know it wasn't continuation of progression in terms of Europe where they felt they should be or wanted to be. But then I think that there was an issue with transfers. Again, I think there's a lot of clubs that go down the line of, oh, we'll develop everyone in our squad. We'll buy development players and players with potential. I'm thinking sometimes you need to buy experience. Sometimes you need to buy players that you know will go unnoticed, won't cause you a problem, and are available and are trusted in their positions in the Premier League. And I think that has probably cost them. I think they've bought great players in terms of potential, but if you're looking and thinking, have you got any players that have played 100 games, have been available for 100 games, like being consistent over 50, 60 games? And that is a big thing. And I think it's been neglected from a lot of teams. And I think we're seeing that in regards to why teams are getting relegated. Southampton, Leeds now fighting through it. And now you're seeing it's a case of, well, Everton are potentially going to stay up based on their experience. So it isn't going to be a case of, well, we just buying young, hopeful players.
And just before we do your predictions for the final weekend, I've got to ask you, who do you think is going to survive out of the three? We've spoken about Everton having it in their own hands.
Yeah, I think it's Everton. Again, I thought it was Everton a few weeks ago due to the running and the fixtures and the form. When it's like 5 games to go and you're saying all we need is 2, 3 wins, it's like teams haven't done that for months. You know what I mean? Like Leicester kept their first clean sheet in 20 games, was it the other day? Which is a remarkable stat. So I think Everton win, but I also believe they would have stayed up on default anyway. I don't see Leicester and Leeds both doing enough to get them out of the trouble.